Hello, Internet! My name is Catherine Barsonistas, and you are watching the Gluttonous Geek Presents Munchies and Minis, my weekly cooking show where I make recipes inspired by various tabletop role-playing games, such as Pathfinder, Shadowrun, and in this particular case, Dungeons & Dragons. And I am actually on Facebook Live today, and I'm realizing that I need to turn off my volume on my phone so I can actually keep an eye on the chat without having my little mini voice kind of echoing back at me. That's fine though. Yes, we are back on Facebook Live because I ponied up and decided to pay for Streamlabs Prime. Yay! Not to worry, I'm sure it'll be worth it because that means everyone here on the Facebook side of things can also check out the show without having to jump to a new platform. And yeah, that means more chats for me, which means, you know, more interesting conversations. Yes, today, like I said, we are doing a recipe based off of Dungeons & Dragons. This particular one is from Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast from the Forgotten Realms series, published in the mid-90s, and the kind of interesting thing about the Volo's guides is that it's all kind of it's a series of travel guides written by the bard Volo to all these various different places to stay, you know, kind of abandoned alleys in cities and whatnot, and it kind of gives a lot of flavor text for your game if you happen to be campaigning within the Forgotten Realms series. If you can get your hands on a PDF, I highly suggest it. A lot of them are free online if you happen to search well enough. And even though, yes, these guides were written well before 5th edition, you can still use them because they don't really use stats so much. I mean, they still have prices of things, which still translates to the current Dungeons & Dragons the current edition of Dungeons & Dragons. However, if you need a little bit more flavor text outside of just what you have in your current campaign module, or if you want to kind of flesh out a little bit more of what you're playing within that particular campaign setting, the Volo's Guides I highly recommend, especially in answering the question, okay, we're in a tavern, what's good here? And that's the great thing about the Volo's Guides, because it lists off a ton of menu items that are available for you, and, you know, it just adds a little bit more character to your game. This particular recipe, the Red Sheaf's potato soup, is from Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast, which includes a lot of information about Baldur's Gate. I'm not sure if it includes Neverwinter. I don't think it does, but a lot of things along the Sword Coast. This recipe comes from Baragost, which is south of Candlekeep, way south of Baldur's Gate, and actually within about a stone's throw of the Amnish border. Now, for those of you who are not really familiar with the campaign setting of the Forgotten Realms series, the Baldur's Gate sort of area of the Sword Coast seems very similar to provincial France as far as what crops are available as well as cooking styles, and the country of AMN, south of all of this is very similar to medieval and Renaissance Spain. So, Baragost being so close to the Amnish/Spanish border, I'm kind of doing sort of a French potato soup, cold potato soup, that has some Spanish elements. So, because I like to read from the source book when I go over this, the Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast of the City of Baragost, you may have actually seen me post about this recently with the Feld post in Fireside Tarts. In the City of Baragost, there is 1 tavern and 3 inns. The food there's no food served at the Burning Wizard Tavern. However, all 3 of the inns nearby serve food and also have food sent in to the Burning Wizard. Later on that, the Red Sheaf. Let's go ahead and read what Volo says on this. It says, folk come to the Sheaf for fast service. This inn prides itself on getting you to your room or to a board in the dining room as fast as possible. If the weather is cold or wet, you'll find yourself in a warm house row before a crackling fire just as quickly, with your wet things taken to the warming room behind the kitchen chambers to dry on warm stone shelves. Fare at the Sheaf is of the warm or cold soups, cheese and grapes, bread and spreads, and whole roast variety. The cold potato soup is delightful and carries the homey taste of onion and celery, along with a more subtle and indefinable seasoning that I was unable to pin down. Unfortunately, the roasts are either blackened to a crisp ashes, or on the other side, deep inside near raw. The cooks haven't mastered the slow fire yet, only for the too hot, too quick one. This is Varagos' largest inn, is favored by merchants wanting to hold business meetings or sit in quiet. Those willing to part with 7 gold for an evening can rent private meeting rooms with doors that lock, though I suspect there are spy holes in the serving passage that run behind them all. Entertainer folk, minstrels and such, aren't welcome at the Sheaf except as paying customers. The Sheaf provides no entertainment at all. Local gossip whispers that a secret passage at the back of the inn leads down to an old smuggler's warehouse comprising caverns that were abandoned when Drow tunneled up the caverns from below. They had to be dealt by Fanaltir, who left some sort of magical barrier. So we're talking about a town that happens to be on the caravan routes going north. They're probably going to have a lot of Amnish spices coming through. Probably can get them pretty darn cheap. So, hi, Sir Walk-a-Lot. Nice to see you on Twitch. And see here, we've got Megan Ann on Facebook saying, just in the descriptions, it already sounds delicious just saying. Yeah, I'm kind of excited how this is going to turn out, because I was trying to do kind of a mix of Spanish and French ingredients to kind of have that sort of local flavor, but also the stuff that happens to come into the caravan routes. And that timer that just went off is for my tea, because for some reason, right before the stream, my allergies decided to kick me in the face. So I went ahead and brewed up a cup of Dryad Tea's Loki's Kiss, which is a fantastic rooibos tea that happens to have peppermint in it, as well as God, what else does she have? Either way, oh yes, and white chocolate pieces. So it tastes kind of like a mint chocolate sort of honeybush tea, which is actually quite excellent. And also, big thing about rooibos tea: if you have terrible allergies to pollen like I do, it is a great boost to your allergy medicine. If you happen to, still wait on your allergy medicine to kick in, rooibos tea is where it's at, especially from Dryad Tea. Cheers to that. And here's hoping that I don't sneeze about 20 billion times within the stream, and this will kick in soon. Oh, that's good. Okay, so this is actually a quick recipe, so we're not going to be cooking this too long. However, we still have some leftover honeyed pumpkin bread from last week, and I still have a ton of baked apples left over from when I did a Kushiel's Dart recipe for the blog, so we're going to be experimenting later for kind of a pumpkin apple, I wouldn't say crumble, probably more of a cobbler. We'll see how that works with that. So, yeah, I think that should be delicious. But let's go ahead and get started cooking while we're at it. So, let me just switch to our prep cam here. Now, you're going to need about a pound of gold potatoes to start out with. So these guys, they're not as high of a starch content as a russet potato. They also have a little bit of firm flesh, which is going to work out for this recipe, because we're not going to be using a blender. We're going to try to make this a little bit more rustic. So we're just going to be cutting these potato pieces very, very thinly to get that kind of, I want to say kind of the texture that works for a cold soup. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my asparagus macho, but I don't always necessarily want all of my soups, especially served cold, I want to say kind of like baby food. I mean, that's nature of purees. So we're going to be making it a little bit more toothsome. So Let's go ahead and peel those potatoes. I peeled the potatoes. For those who remember that quote from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, you win internet points. And just like, whose line is it anyway? It's all made up, and the points don't matter. So, I mean, isn't that always the case with internet points? I don't know. Anyway, let's see. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, you might recognize the town of Baragost from the most recent Munchies and Minis blog post that I put up. I am that behind on posting up the videos. I mean, the videos are up. They are all on Twitch. However, as far as the description with all of my reasoning behind it, as well as, you know, all my sources and everything, that doesn't necessarily go up until I write it. And writing takes a while, especially if you are trying to alternate them, like I am. However, if you want to catch more recent episodes of Munchies and Minis, I highlight the whole episodes on Twitch, so have at it. Right, I'm peeling them first. Peeling. I know you want to get to cutting things, but you gotta peel things first. Otherwise, you're just kind of switching back and forth and being nutty and all that. Which I kind of do anyway. But, yeah, as I was saying, so, the Feld post-in, which was on the last episode that I filmed months ago. Not last episode live, last episode posted on my blog. The Feld post-in. The Feld post-in is also located in the city of Baragost, and it is very much a quiet tavern. I'm noticing that kind of is a common thing with the inns in Baragost. I mean, if you want to drink and a lot of loud noises, you either go to the Burning Wizard, or actually the other inn is the Jovial Juggler. However, Feldpost Inn, they have complimentary, and complimentary as in free, not as in telling you how nice your shoes look. Complimentary fireside tarts with onion and mushroom. And since they're offered for free and offered by the fireside, quickly cooked, I figured it would be some kind of Yorkshire pudding that they would have some pre-cooked stuffing that they probably would just warm up and put into said Yorkshire puddings. So, for that recipe, if you want to check out my blog, thegluttonousgeek.com, is a bunch of little miniature Yorkshire puddings made with orange zest and I want to say paprika. I can't remember. No, made with orange zest and herbes Provence, and served inside said Yorkshire puddings. See, peel, she says, like a Baptist preacher healing a potato on too many eyes. Oh gosh, bless you, Strike. Bless you. Strike is our moderator, and he is also the DM for the game I am currently playing. You could actually also catch him DMing for Chaotic Tiefling Sunday Brunch Club, which is in his homebrewed world of Eutharia. And let me tell you, it is a hilarious show, and I'm already wanting to find one of the items listed as a relic in our game, because our game is supposed to take place, I want to say hundreds of years in the, either hundreds or thousands of years in the future. This item is a bag of never-ending cookies. I know, right? I mean, my character's a dragon shaman, and her touch burns things. So can you just imagine her just, taking cookies out of this bag, lighting them on fire, and then pelting people with them? I mean, I think it would be fun. 300, 400 years in the future, he says. Okay. But yeah, okay. Potatoes are peeled. They are all peeled. And now they go in the trash. Or at least the peels go in the trash. Not the potatoes, because then we will have peeled them for no reason at all other than just to demonstrate how to peel a potato. I am not that cruel to my food. So, next up, I'm just going to get some prep bowls to make this process easier. Boop. Alrighty, so the next bit is that we just need to cut them to the appropriate size. Now first, because I always do this whenever I use a chef's knife, is demonstrate how to properly hold said knife. You want to do, instead of doing this, because just with the slightest bit of touch, it slips all over the place. Even if I grip it tight, it slips all over the place. That's how you chop your fingers off. So, what you want to do instead is take the index finger of your dominant hand, mine happens to be my right, put it right here, up against the blade, where it meets with the handle. Put your thumb on the other side, and then comfortably wrap your fingers around the handle. And honestly, it just takes the slightest bit of force to keep it stable. See? I am barely gripping the knife at all. And I am really trying to twist this thing. So, there you go. Next up, we just want to cut these into planks at first. So, we're going to be cutting about 1/2-inch batons. To make batons, you need to start out with planks. So, that's roughly about 1/2 inch. A lot of knife work is learning how to create stable surfaces and evenly shaped pieces. Stable surfaces, so you don't cut your fingers off, and evenly spaced pieces, so they, for the most part, cook at the same amount of time. So, I am doing something I would not actually, you know what, we've got time. Just gonna cut 1/2-inch batons, as you see right there. And this is where you kind of eyeball it, but also use the first piece you used to kind of figure out roughly about the same thickness. There you go. And I'm just going to do that with the remainder of the potatoes. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to work. And, you know, preferably without cutting your fingers off. So, and a lot of times I will cut corners and stack them on top of each other, especially if they're potatoes and the slices stick together. However, if you're just starting out, I don't suggest you do this until you get used to working with a knife the proper way, and can therefore stop yourself if your knife happens to slip or if the food happens to slip. So, and honestly, creating that stable surface is what's going to keep you from having your knife slipping all that much, or the food slipping. So, once again, stable surface, planks, and here we go. And there we go again. As you could probably hear, my allergies are starting to catch up to me, so I will be muting this in just a quick second to blow my nose, because that sounds gross. So, un moment. Alright, and we're back. Thank you for your patience there. You know, I'll take allergies over the muscle and joint pains I was having yesterday after my, because yeah, I got my second shot on Monday of the COVID vaccine. And I was very lucky to have pretty mild side effects that most people have been having. And like I said, just muscle pains and really weird joint pains. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have joint issues. I have really flexible joints, and being in my 30s now and completely and utterly out of shape, whenever the weather changes, oh, I know about it. However, this particular day, I was having joint pains in places I don't normally have joint pain. So I'm like, okay, this has to be the vaccine. This has to be my immune response to my body learning how to not get the plague. So, you know what? I'll take it. I will freaking take it. It's surreal to me at this point that I managed to make it through it. And I still have, of course, that 2-week point of when I can actually, interact with people again. But it's still pretty surreal knowing that it's coming so soon. Just because it's been a year. I mean, it's been a year since I've hugged somebody other than my husband and my parents. So, the whole concept of in 2 weeks I can basically jump on my friends and, like, hug them until they pass out. Yeah. It's been a while since I'd seen people, and I'm not even an extrovert. Man, that tea's good. Okay, so now that we've got our our batons of potato, now we just slice them stupidly thin. So, try to get it to about 1/8 of an inch. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it just kind of has to be roughly the same size. And you notice how my knife is not completely leaving the board either. It actually helps keep better control that way. So, there we go. Strike says, I look forward to seeing people, but my people, most of them can go away forever. I can relate. I can definitely relate to that. I am, like I said, I am actually an omnivert, which, I mean, you've heard of introverts, you've heard of extroverts, you've heard of ambiverts. The thing is, ambiverts they're good in either way. They get energy in both being alone and being around people. I'm an omnivert, which means I get drained quicker in unfamiliar groups of people. However, if they're a group of people that I'm comfortable with, I actually get more energy off of them. So, yes, I am looking very much forward to seeing my people. And by my people, I mean, well, technically you people, the nerds. See, the first convention I am hitting up once most of the plague, most everybody's been vaccinated, is JordanCon here in Atlanta, actually the weekend right before my birthday. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some folks. I know that Tom Kasaza from Audio Dungeon podcast said he would be there last year with his Wheel of Time podcast people. So hoping he can still make it out. We'll see what happens on that. Strike, that's maybe a better way to define me, omnivore. Yeah, it's I used to confuse the heck out of myself because I'm going, am I introverted? Am I extroverted? Because I don't know, at DragonCon, especially when I was younger, I would just get, like, stupid drunk and then just wander like a Maniac Pixie Dream Girl from group to group. And everyone was my friend. But of course, that was DragonCon about 11 years ago, at least. So, that was when the crowds were significantly smaller. So I could actually hear people's conversations over, well, now the music is too darn loud. But I was also when I was staying in the hotels where it was actually safer for me to get smashed because, one, I could bring my own stuff and didn't have to spend stupid amounts of money on it. But two, I had somewhere to crash pretty much immediately. And considering that 2004 was my first Dragon Con. Let's see. It's like, wait, Dragon Con 11 years ago? Were you even legal to drink then? I will let you know, sir, that I am turning 35 this year, so yes, I was legal enough to drink. So if you're going, she doesn't look that old, I'm like, well, that's because I'm half Romanian. And being half Eastern European can either, you know, make puberty explode all over your face and everywhere else when you turn of age. This will be the worst you'll ever look in your entire life. And then somehow look like you were in your 30s from 17 to your 60s. So yeah, that's what I'm discovering about being half Romanian. That's the thing. It's like being Eastern European. You either, you know, stay young looking for a stupidly long amount of time until you hit your 70s, and then it just kind of explodes all over you. Or you, if you are an Eastern European woman, in some particular cases, you end up looking like an Eastern European man. It happens. I mean, I actually have no idea which one it's going to be because, yeah, like I said, puberty hit me like a sack of bricks, so this is stuff I'm sure you just love to hear when I'm cooking, isn't it? Yeah. See, Strike says, I'm Celtic, so I don't look my age either. I am also a dwarf, so, it happens. And, you know, sometimes the whole, like, rugged Celtic / Viking sort of look basically de-ages you. So, yeah. Let's see here. Well, I will say I did have kind of a, let's see, my college class reunion, I want to say 2 years ago, I think it might have been 2019, either 2019 or 2018. It was my 10-year class reunion was 2018. And so I saw an English professor of mine who had retired, but we're having a kind of retired professor brunch or something. And she's like, Catherine, you haven't aged a day. I'm just going, yes. That makes me happy. It's like, you know what? I'll take it. I mean, I may have gained like 50 pounds, but I'll take it. Potatoes. Cutting more potatoes. Actually, most of this episode's probably going to be me cutting vegetables at this rate. But it allows me to talk about other things. And there's something just kind of fascinating about, well, just, I don't know, some kind of weird stress-relieving thing in cutting vegetables. Especially if it's just kind of a similar motion like such. Yeah, always slow down when you get to that last little bit of whatever you're cutting. So, though I will admit, turning 35 this year is kind of freaking me out a little bit. Because I'm at the point now where a lot of my friends are either having kids or going, I'm never having kids. And considering I kind of lost a year of my life to the pandemic, I wanted to travel more. I mean, I was going to go to Dubai last year. Yeah, that sounds privileged as heck. I know. But my aunt, actually, she's a law professor out in Dubai. and she wanted me to come visit, so she bought my ticket, and I was gonna go visit her. Oddly enough, the week I was gonna visit her was when lockdown started. It was actually no, 2-3 weeks after lockdown started, and yeah, actually, I would have been stuck out there because turns out, while my flights there didn't get automatically canceled, my flights back did because they actually shut down the airport. I mean, just shut down all outgoing and incoming flights for Dubai around the time I was supposed to be there. So yeah, if I had actually gone, well, for one, I would be streaming at a much different time than I am now. I would still be out there. I would have lost the job that I just started. Yeah, and I would have missed eating bacon like you wouldn't believe. Because I'm not really sure, and even then, it's like I'm not even sure if the tourist alcohol license lasts that long. Because yeah, I mean, you can drink in Dubai if you happen to have the like kind of a tourist license to do so. However, I don't think they last. I don't think they last a year. So, hello, Blazer Gloriosa. See, Anthony Couch is not so bad. I know I would have missed bacon. I mean, actually, I've cut down my drinking to maybe once or twice an entire week since lockdown. Which, you know, that's fine, considering when I first started lockdown, oh, there was a lot more drinking than that. But, no, I, started having some better habits, got kind of back into religion, even though it's not exactly the one you would think of, but that's different conversation. And, let's see, I've lost about 5-10 pounds. I've gotten back into fasting. Let's see. And, what else has been going on? I'm trying to remember. I've been more regular with the blog. I've been making a conscious effort to be better about that. I'm just behind on posting the stuff I've cooked. I mean, for example, the blog post that I put up yesterday for the Shroud of the Avatar smoked duck, yeah, that was our Christmas dinner. And by Christmas I mean winter holiday, because I'm not actually a Christian. But that's pretty much how long ago that was. And what I'm gonna be posting next week for the blog, the pizza tacos for the game Night in the Woods. I made those back in January. Yeah, it's been a while, though. My Patreon supporters have been getting up to 6 recipes a month. So, I mean, if you're on my Patreon, you get stuff pretty much the month I cook it. So, that's not a insistence on go and support my Patreon, but, you know, if you want stuff a little faster, I suggest you go there. You just won't get the very long descriptions of what my influences were and how I developed this recipe and all that, which you normally would get with the blog, because the blog is... Well, I was an English major in college, so I kind of do, I want to say story analysis, but through food. So, that's also why it takes so long to write the blog post, because I'm basically having to write an English paper, a researched and analyzed research paper. So, let's see. Strike says, I desperately need to get you and Friday in the same room. You would get on famously. Who's Friday? Is that one of your Chicago friends, or another friend from the RP world that I just haven't met yet? Friday runs a tea shop in the PNW. What's the PNW? I'm assuming that's a part of Chicago. I'm trying to remember. Pacific Northwest. Pacific Northwest, okay. Yeah, oh, no, Friday Tea Shop. Yeah, she, I get her tea from time to time. We both follow each other on the Twitters. And comment on stuff. I mean, apparently we're both crazy cat ladies, too. So, you know, I'm all for that. But mostly, I just need to get my butt out to Seattle. I've never been. I have friends who live there and friends who've been there who keep telling me I would absolutely love it. I don't think they're wrong. It's another thing that I was gonna do last year. When I was working for the school, my plan was to go visit Seattle during spring break. Yeah, that didn't happen. I was even like looking up Airbnbs around the Olympia area and like looking up all these foraging tours to go forage mushrooms out in the woods and fiddlehead ferns and all that. Yeah, her synesthesia would be really something to talk about with your literary via food. That's cool as hell. Yeah, when my former roommate slash little sister stopped through Seattle on her way to an Alaskan cruise, told me that the smoked salmon was unearthly good out in Seattle. Of just every food item she had was just life-changing. So, yeah, I want to go to Seattle. Also, since I do a lot of stuff with Zombie Orpheus, I was really wanting to go film a Cooking with Caro episode based off of the web series Journey Quest with them, because they did a bunch of videos based on my Journey Quest recipes with, God, what's his name? Why does his name escape me? I was just making fun of him on Twitter the other day. Brian? The guy who plays Cass in the Gamer series and plays Caro in Journey Quest. Why is his name evading me? Brian Lewis. Yes, there he goes. Brian Lewis. Yeah, so he did a bunch of videos, and you can find them on YouTube, for Cooking with Caro, where he made, as kind of as a promotion for the Kickstarter for Journey Quest Season 4, made the recipes with the actors who played the characters the recipes were based off of. And we were talking about, when I come visit Seattle, that I actually come and be on a Cooking with Caro episode where we make a recipe inspired by Caro. And obviously that didn't happen because of the plague. However, I think it's possible. I just need to figure out what to make, because Caro in the show is a cleric of the light god who accidentally gets turned into a sentient zombie, and therefore completely gets disowned by his patron god. So the only thing you see him eating is the arm of an orc after he turns into sentient zombie. So I was thinking kind of a braised pork shank. The only trouble is, pork shank is not all that easy to find in grocery stores, so I might just have to go with the lamb shank instead. But yeah, the fun on Twitter that Strike was referring to is one of the Zombie Orpheus folks posted up a production, well, kind of a behind-the-scenes shot of Brian, like behind in front of a green screen and making this face. And he's like, I'm sure that no one is going to take advantage of this green screen shot here to make memes or anything. And so people started putting backgrounds on it, putting them in front of like Mona Lisa and all that. And I use the Reface app. And I usually have terrible results with the Reface app. However, when there's a picture of someone with a green screen, apparently the Reface app works really well. Like, scary well. That person could be making, well, as a face, and it still shows their face naturally in the Reface app. So I kind of put his face on a belly dancer, and then I put on Emma from the TV series Emma, and then I put it on Jim Carrey from The Mask. So, if anyone wants to go say hi to Brian Lewis, tell him that his belly dancing is amazing, and he really should consider a career change, because we agreed that particular that should be the case. Right, so slicing potatoes. We're almost done slicing potatoes. Then we can slice some onions and celery, guys. Aren't you excited? As my husband makes up a scotch and ginger ale next to me. I would love one. I would love a scotch and ginger ale to go along with my rooibos tea and my water. Okay. Alright. Thank you, husband of mine. But yeah, another reason why I was kind of bummed out about last year was I was really looking forward to Gen Con. Because Gen Con's kind of my, it's kind of my fun con now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Dragon Con. Dragon Con is my first con, it's my first love. But it's my family reunion. Gen Con is the, I've got my friends here, but I'm gonna go do stuff. Well, Dragon Con is like, okay, we need to meet up with these folks, and these folks, and these folks. I need to go tackle this person, and this person, and this person, and maybe we'll catch up with them, and oh god, it's so freaking hot, and I can't get around this costume, That's basically how Dragon Con kind of ends up going. I mean, when you bring about almost 100,000 people to to about 3 or 4 blocks of Atlanta, stuff gets pretty crazy. Like, you know how I mentioned that I can't really do the whole walking around drunk like a manic pixie dream girl thing anymore? And a lot of that has to do with the crowds. I overheat easily, so crowds and overheating don't always mix. So, potatoes. Aw, he gave me a D20 ice cube. Yay! Actually, I'm not sure if you can see that well. Hey babe, can you put this closer to the main cam? I'm not really sure if you can see the D20 all that well, but D20 ice cubes. Okay. Okay. Oh, that is excellent. Oh! Barrel-aged bitters. That definitely tasted different than usual. Let's, there is a... 1821 is a local syrups and bitters making company here to Atlanta. Just to let you know, Strike, you might enjoy their stuff. We'll try to take you by Ponce City Market at some point when you come over and visit. Anyway, I was slicing potatoes. I should finish slicing the potatoes. Oh, goodness. This is probably where doing a lot of pre-prep will help you out, especially if you have a group of people that you're cooking for. So. There we go. Alright. Next up, I'm gonna put the potatoes over here until I need them. Next up, big old yellow onion. And a bag to put said yellow onion scraps in, because normally I would just put it all in a freezer bag and then make homemade stock later on. However, I haven't made homemade stock in a while, so my freezer's kind of inundated with bags of pretty much garbage. Kitchen scraps, so it's not actual garbage, but, you know, let's see, Strike says, sounds like a plan to me. I figure I'll need to spend a week down there. Yep. And hopefully we'll have a guest room by then. I can't promise that, because we still need to finish the master bath renovation, but maybe by that point we'll have a guest room. We shall see. And heck, I mean, if you time it out right, maybe you can come in time for Wizard Party. Which, by the way, Wizard Party is usually the weekend after Halloween. So, no pressure. But if you would like to come hang out with a bunch of people dressed as wizards, while eating a ton of food that I cook, then you might want to come down for Wizard Party, just saying. Yeah. Awesome. I have to come down more than once, clearly. Yes, clearly indeed, Strike. Okay. But yeah, we have this whole, potion making station where we take liquor bottles and we put kind of old-timey labels on them. Don't worry, we still write what's in them. But this year I think we may just do the basics, because we always end up with leftovers of really obscure stuff, like the slime of frog, which is actually peppermint schnapps. People don't really like peppermint schnapps all that much, apparently. And I think we had like pumpkin liqueur that we just, yeah, I think we just end up trashing the rest of that because it was, no. However,
I'll say this, it also includes, I'm just gonna name it now, for you, Parsons Better Butterbeer.
Well, it's technically Eastus Better Butterbeer.
Yeah, but there's no alliteration there.
I know, but you're the one who made it up.
But it's us. It's both of us.
There's a butterbeer recipe on my website, thegluttonousgeek.com. It is an alcoholic butterbeer, and it's like, it has butterscotch liqueur, yes, it's a root beer based butterbeer, which I like a little better. It's okay. It's actually, unlike the butterbeer that you get at Universal, it's okay room temperature. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's still palatable at room temperature. Also, it's not overly sweet. Yeah, a lot of people say they prefer Carter's Butterbeer, which it's better butterbeer. But there's also a recipe for giggle water on the blog as well. And besides, that way you can get butterbeer or giggle water without giving any money to J.K. Rowling. Which, you know, I support. I'm a little sad that I can no longer give money to J.K. Rowling, but you know what? She's worth more than the Queen of England as far as net worth is concerned. So, does she really need the extra money? No. Anyway, let's see. Let's get the rest of that peel off of there. Babe, I don't think they can hear you right now. Anyway, let's see here. We've got an onion. Now, the biggest thing whenever you're cutting an onion is that the reason why you cry is that there are compounds in onions that when you cut them, when it releases into the air for cell damage, it reacts with your tear ducts and creates sulfuric acid. That's why you're crying. because you have acid in your eyes. So the biggest way to get past that is to cause as little cell damage as possible, which is helped by having a sharp knife, using it properly, and trying to do it quickly enough so you have as little as possible releasing into your eyes. You can also rinse it ahead of time, you can freeze it ahead of time. I would not recommend freezing it because freezing it oftentimes will dull your knife and, you know, ruin it. So, babe, can I... Smelling coffee! This is not a sponsor. This is not a sponsorship. Not yet, anyway. Will also kind of help with the whole process. Yeah, this is Geek Grind's Pathfinder Cadence Cup coffee. It's got it's a medium dark roast with cocoa, nutmeg, and sugar cane. It's pretty good. No sponsor post on that. Someday there will be. Speaking of sponsors, one of these days, once I actually, you know, test the recipe out, I'm going to be doing a sponsor episode with Viking Alchemist Meadery, a local meadery here to the Atlanta area, more up in Marietta, and I will be making some what I'm calling Edon's apples, which they're going to be mead poached and then mead-based toffee-covered golden apples. My husband keeps signaling to me what's the growler. Yes, yeah. You're gonna have to say things, babe. Otherwise, I'm not gonna know. But yes, Viking Alchemist Meadery. They've got fantastic meads. They're all delicious. Don't worry, Strike. We will take you to Viking Alchemist one of the times that you happen to come visit. So where was I? Yes. So we're gonna be doing a dice on these onions, and you see all these lines on the onion. We're going to be using them as a guide to do a radial cut. So I'm just going to stick the point of the knife in here, and then put the point down where it meets the board, and then just draw it in to cut along those lines while keeping this bud end here intact. Now, it did kind of pop out a little bit on me, but that's fine, because we're still going to try to go at this as quickly as possible. I mean, try to work at your own pace. But you notice with these long cuts, I'm also causing as little cell damage as possible. I'm just going to go ahead and do the radial cut on this onion as well. So once I dice it, it'll go pretty quickly for both sides. So, here we go. Yeah. Stay. Didn't tell you that you can leave. Okay. Alright, so that's done. So, I'm just going to cut across with a nice, uniform onion dice. Cool. And I'm just going to be quick about things, use my bench scraper here to get the rest of that up. You've noticed it takes a lot less time to cut this than it does potatoes. So... and there we go. Now this is a bench scraper. A lot of times you'll see it used to cut bread. However, you can also, as the name implies, scrape your cutting board with that little platform there. Alright, now let's get our celery. let's do about 2 stalks to start out with. See what we get from that. Yep. There we go. I'm just going to cut off the ends there. And there. And I'm going to try to go as thin as possible with these. So, I'm just going to normally this is where I would actually cut this into smaller sections like so. Split the larger ones in half. Once again, planks. Don't worry, we don't have nearly as much celery to cut, so this is not going to take nearly as long as the potatoes. So where are you? Aha. Alright. Got that all bunched up. And there we go. The bench scraper here. And create that flat platform there. Slice it thinly. Just gonna bunch those together. And I still have this. I might do 3 stalks of celery, just because Volo does mention in the source book that you can taste it. And while celery is a pretty strong flavor as it is, I want it to be a little bit more apparent than just to a super taster. So, let's go ahead and slice our batons. Stupidly thin. There we go. Alright. And once again, just like before, I'll divide that in half so I have something a little bit easier to control. Alright. And stupidly thin. Now granted, if you just want to throw your celery and onion into a food processor, do not make me stop you. Just, I like my knife work, what can I say? Besides, I find a lot of times when you throw onion into a food processor, you end up with a lot of just liquid, just kind of pouring right out. That's why you oftentimes a lot of recipes that involve throwing onion into a food processor have you pulse it. Less cell damage and also less likely to just turn flat out into puree. Alright, so that is all of the vegetables. Did I take 3 stalks of celery? You know what? I think 2 is fine. We'll do 2.5. Because what I want to do is I want to create some garnishes for when this is over. So I'm just going to cut those off. I'm going to... we'll do about this much for the garnish, and the rest of this we'll just... I'll keep that for the garnish too. There we go. This will go in the soup. There we go. Allergies are starting to kick me in the face again. Okay. There we go. All right. That's our veggies. So now I need my spices, which I've got Spanish paprika, dried thyme, and nutmeg. So I'm just gonna get a little prep dish out here, and we're gonna mix up our spice blend. So where did I put my measuring spoons? I may not have taken them out yet. Here we are. So we are gonna need about a teaspoon of Spanish paprika, half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and whatever else happens to come out of the spice jar when it falls over. There we go. And how much thyme? Right, a teaspoon of dried thyme, which I just bought today, as you can tell. Alrighty. I'm sure there's a cleaner way of removing that, but I just don't feel like dealing with it. Alright, half and full. And just going to take a spoon and mix that all together. That should be about equal to about 2.5 teaspoons, obviously, and half of that will be 1.25 teaspoon. Keep that in mind as I put my quarter teaspoon measuring spoon into there. And we're gonna need 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And a, let's see, tablespoon or a half tablespoon? A half tablespoon of sherry vinegar, which I have right here. So first I just need to preheat my large saucepan here. You can use a large saucepan or a, what's it called? Dutch oven. I'm going to be preheating this on medium heat for about 3 minutes. And we'll kind of cleaning up some things. I'm just going to go ahead and measure out that the other stuff we need, which, like I said, we're going to need about a half a tablespoon of sherry vinegar or sherry. Depends on what you happen to have available to you and at your grocery store. Once again, we're kind of going for the whole Spanish type of flavors in here. So we got that ready to go. And you're going to need about 4 cups of chicken stock. It's okay to go with the cheap stuff. I mean, heck, I would probably just use about 4 cups of water and some chicken bouillon, but, you know, we're going to try to be a little bit more whole flavors, I guess. Also, chicken stock is also less likely to have all that spices that you're going to get with bouillon and also with broth. So if you want something a little bit more pronounced flavor, stock is a good way to go. So I just need to measure that out. Or at least I can measure out half of it and then pour as I go. So, about 2 cups. I think this whole thing is about 4 cups, to be honest with you, but I'm not entirely sure. So, just to be safe, yeah. Alright, let's go back to our stovetop cam. So, we got about a minute left on our preheat. I'm going to go ahead and cut off 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And put the rest of it in the fridge, because I don't need it at the moment. Okay. So, now you are going to need we are about 30 seconds away from our preheat ending. Just gonna go ahead and add. There's still a little bit of water in that spoon. That's why it is sizzling like so. About a tablespoon of olive oil. And to that, we're gonna add stainless steel apparently heats up a lot faster than cast irons, so I'm just going to lower the heat a little bit and turn on the fan, because that is going a lot faster than I was anticipating. So once that butter is all melted and, you know, not splattering on you. Alright, we are going to be adding our about a half. We're just going to be adding that. There we go, that stops splattering. Note to self, do not use wet measuring spoons with oil that will become hot. So, normally I would just add the spices directly to the fat, but it's a bit hot for that, so I'm going to be adding about a teaspoon and a quarter of our spice blend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And where did my kosher salt go? A pinch of kosher salt. And find a slotted spoon. And go ahead and stir all of that goodness in. There we go. And we're just going to cook that for about 3 to 5 minutes until our onions, for the most part, kind of turn translucent. I'd go ahead and set a timer for 3 minutes. We're going to stir that intermittently as it goes. And I'm going to mute my microphone for a second because I really need to blow my nose. So, one moment. Okay, and we're back. So, it is starting to sweat for me, which I know sounds kind of dirty, giggity, but it's definitely nice and aromatic. Just give that a little bit more of a stir. And drink my tea, because, like I said, my allergies are kicking me in the face. Oh, man. This stuff's good. But this will also allow me to do a little bit of cleanup. Big thing for cooking, clean as you go. And that goes there. Put this to the side for now. These go back in here. I'm kind of debating just going ahead and slicing up all of my celery and freezing it for future recipes, but I don't know. I might not, just because I might still need it for another format, really, for another Munchies and Minis recipe or blog post recipe coming up. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it back up and throw it back in the fridge for now. Alrighty. I kind of think I want these onions a little bit more tender, so I think I'm gonna let that cook for another 2 minutes and check on it then, see if it's time to add our, what's it called? Our things, the rest of the ingredients in our soup. So, yeah. Right, I was doing a thing, checking the chat and stuff. I am seeing nothing. Okay, sounds good to me. Alright. Drink. And funny drink. Let's see how we're doing here. I mean, really what I'm doing here is creating a flavor base to go off of. Now, Volo does say in the description of the soup that there is an interminable spice that he couldn't really put his finger on. And the reason why I'm going with paprika on this is the Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast is one of the newer Volo. Well, it's one of the older Volo's Guides. It's one of the first Volo's Guides written. So it's before he actually traveled to south of the Sword Coast, which is based off of, like I said, kind of medieval Renaissance Spain. And a lot of Spanish cuisine, not necessarily medieval Spanish, but you get what I'm saying, uses paprika. And, paprika in their dishes, as well as thyme. Thyme is a flavor component that it shares with French cooking, while you're going to find a lot of nutmeg in French cooking. Okay, this is looking a little better, but once again, I'm going to go for another 2 minutes. So for those who are writing this recipe down at home, change it to about 5 to 7 minutes. For the onion and celery mix. Like I was saying, the reason why I went with paprika is it's not really used all that much traditionally in, say, English or French cooking. The stuff you're going to find more north of the country of Am. So it's a very good chance by the time that Volo is published his guide to the Sword Coast, he has not tried paprika yet. So he doesn't know what the heck that spice is that he is tasting. So that's why we're using that in this recipe. So, I mean, we see cinnamon, we see nutmeg, we see a bunch of spices, we see dill, we see all sorts of stuff, but I did Control F on the PDF. There was no paprika. And for that matter, all other Volo's guides do not mention it. In fact, the only time I see him mentioning is the city of Athkala for his Volo's Guide to Baldur's Gate 2, and the city of Krimor, which is in So, once again, not likely to have that. So that's why I use Spanish paprika in this, and, you know, it adds a little bit of something, especially to a potato soup. But I figure cold soups tend to be a little bit more of a Mediterranean Spanish thing, because the summers in Spain get stupidly hot. We're talking 100-degree hot. So, that's why stuff like gazpacho is popular. Alright, our onions have definitely cooked down to kind of almost sort of a paste consistency, which, you know, I like that, because then it'll break down further once we add the liquid, which we're actually doing right now. And we're just going to be adding that sherry vinegar to start out with. Give that a quick stir. Let its fragrance penetrate all that onion. Then we're going to be adding about 4 cups of chicken stock. There's 2. And I mean, I might just end up using the... Yep, this entire box was about 4 cups. So keep in mind, you only need 1 of these when you make this soup. All right, so got that in there. And now, just going to add all those potato slivers that you saw earlier. Our remaining spice blend. And 1 or 2 more pinches of kosher salt. Just going to give that a stir. And then, my friends, we wait for it to come to a boil. So, I'm just going to keep watching the camera until it gets to that point, because we want this to get to a boil, and then we want to lower the heat too low to simmer it for then about 12 minutes. But we're having to wait for liquid to boil. So while we're doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and clean out the rest of this stuff. Don't need it anymore. It can go in the recycling or the trash or the fridge, wherever it needs to go. Or I guess in some cases it can go right into the dishwasher, like these little glass dishes. After I empty out what's left of that sherry vinegar into the pot. So, I'm just going to give these bowls a rinse because I'm going to reuse them for the pumpkin bread thingy that we're going to make. For those who've been watching, keeping up with the Munchies and Minis episodes, last week I made a honey and chamomile tea soaked pumpkin bread, which turned out amazing, by the way. However, there's only 2 of us in this household. We can only eat so much dessert in one sitting, so we're going to make another dessert of the leftovers. I actually made some baked apples based off of the book Kushiel's Dart. We have a lot left. I need to do something with them before they go bad. So we're going to try to make kind of a baked apple and pumpkin bread cobbler thing. It'll be an experiment. It's going to be fun. So, I hope you continue with me for that. While we wait for soup to boil. So, just give that another stir. Please come to a boil, Mr. Soup. I would appreciate that very much. And we'll put this celery off to the side. I will get a clean knife for our cobbler thing, as well as a cutting board that is not going to get easily grossed up by already baked apples. So, got a knife, waiting for things to boil, and in the meantime, getting baked apples out of the fridge. Bringing new life to kind of older recipes. So, yeah, but I also have some leftover babka, which is Eastern European sweetbread filled with chocolate and hazelnuts and raisins and stuff. My dad made it about a week or two ago. He gave me a part of a loaf, so we're going to be using that in our cobbler crust. Man, it is taking a while, isn't it? Just raise the heat up a little bit to kind of speed up that boil. In the meantime, let's cut the things. So, this is going to look weird. Already baked apples that are then refrigerated often do. That stuff is actually butter that is melted and then reformed in cold conditions. It is completely edible. It only looks weird. So I'm just going to take this apple that had already been baked and slice that sucker up. So, and this filling here is actually a mixture of chopped raisins and figs, mixed with sugar and lemon zest. Oh, and I believe cinnamon as well. No, clove. It was clove. I remember this clearly. It was quite good. But like I said, we're usually bad at desserts, so I'm gonna pour that in there. That was actually a mixture of the wine poaching liquid, baking liquid, with almond milk. It was delicious. That recipe's going to be on the blog in a couple of weeks. It's already on the Patreon for subscribers. And yeah, I've got like 3 more of those apples. Like I said, we're not huge dessert people, so I figure that I can make this up, and then I also kind of have sort of and don't worry, that's also solidified butter. I figure... Did I mention it was also baked with butter inside? See where it rose up and then re-solidified? So, I'm just gonna toss these little apple ends right here. But I figure that this kitchen experiment I can also make and then serve to friends who would like to try a kitchen experiment. So... just as long as said friends don't have any food allergies, because after this point, I'm not going to remember what the heck is in it. I don't like wasting food, especially when that food is still good. So, to keep from wasting said food, we are going to make a cobbler crumble thing out of these already baked apples. I think it'll be tasty. It was baked with orange muscat, which is right there. As you see, it has butter already in it. We're going to bake it further. We might even thicken up that baking liquid with a saucepan in a little bit. Just to make it a little bit more syrupy, I think. Oh, that one opened up nicely. So yeah, I mean, if I can repurpose these things, even better. There we go. And I figure that the raisins and figs are also going to rehydrate even more when we bake it. Though maybe I should have cut the pumpkin bread earlier just because... Oh, what the heck, it's all going to go into the same thing anyway. I'm basically making a cooked thing out of other cooked things. So, that side is fine. There we go. Okay. There we go. I'm going to drain off some of this liquid, because I honestly don't think we need that much. That should do it. And... I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to about 325 degrees. Well, you know what? We'll go through 350. I find that 350 for at least 30 minutes tends to... Oh, are we finally boiling? We're not boiling yet. Okay. Alright, so... I'm just gonna go... Ah! Splash wine all over myself. Okay. Don't need that anymore. Can go in the fridge. Sorry, in the sink. Not the fridge. We don't put dirty dishes in our fridge, I promise. Alrighty. Just gonna take a spoon. A rather large spoon. And toss that in our poaching liquid. And I'm gonna see if we have any other dried fruits or stuff that we can just go ahead and put in. Stuff in the fridge that I need to use. I'm not currently seeing anything at the moment. But you know what? That is perfectly fine. Derp. Okay. I think I might have some crushed nuts that could be really good. Let's see here. Things and stuff and things. Oh, there's some candied ginger. That might be interesting. Though it could also be a little too much. We'll add a tiny bit of candied ginger and also cut up some dried apricots as well. That should be pretty tasty, I think. So. Just a little bit. No more than about 1/4 of a cup right there. There we go. And dried apricots. Give those a quick chop. Oh, looks like my soup is boiling. Alright, so, soup is boiling. So, give that a stir. And then, turn the heat on to low and set a timer for about 12 minutes. There we go. While my cat wanders around my feet, seeing if there is anything that's tasty that she'll get. Just gonna give these apricots a rough chop because, you know, you get to the point where you just don't really care anymore. I mean, it'll be tasty. It'll cook up. It'll be enjoyable. We will like it. And that's what I keep telling myself. So we're kind of going to be, I want to say, almost creating sort of a bread pudding on top after I get the rest of these fillings kind of chopped up and thrown in here. See here, we got our dried apricot that I've been chopping up. And I mean, all this is while we're waiting for the oven to preheat, too. So it rather works out quite nicely. I like to think. Anyway, just give that bench scraper a rinse because it's still got celery on it. There we go. Stir that a bit. Okay. Now we have a ton of that honeyed pumpkin bread, which is already stupidly sweet because it's been soaked in a syrup made with honey and chamomile tea, which, let me tell you, was friggin' delicious. But, as a result, it's stupidly sweet. But that's fine, because this is dessert, right? And I imagine also baking it down is going to make the flavor sort of mellow together a little bit. Not to mention the wine that we have. When I put it in to the... because it was soaked, it was also kind of cake-like. Oh, we still have fresh rosemary. We're going to put that in as well. I think that would be very tasty. So, actually, come to think of it, I might be able to just use this Tupperware tin. So, I'm just going to cube that. And we're going to mix it with an egg as well. Like I said, kind of a bread pudding sort of concept here. So. And I think maybe some rolled oats mixed in as well could be really tasty. Kind of give it sort of a crumble sort of texture. This is a cooking experiment. I mean, you know how it is. Okay, those pieces are probably a little soggier with the syrup than the others, but that's fine. It'll be tasty. You will enjoy it. I guarantee it. So, cube all the stuff up. You know, we might not actually need egg. There's so much pumpkin in this. So I think what happened when I made this recipe up last time was I actually used a quarter cup of too much of pumpkin, because when I was streaming last time, we were trying to do Reddit live at the same time, and talking to people on Reddit at the same time as talking to people on Twitch, I lost count of how much pumpkin I put in our dish. Let's see, and we've got that babka, which is right here. It's chocolate and hazelnut filled bread my dad made recently. So, just gonna cube that up as well. There we go. I think I've got some milk I can go ahead and... And regular milk, but I'm not sure how old it is. What's the expiration date on you? April 10th. It's fine. It smells fine. That's right, I need, like with any good, can you grab me an egg? With any good bread pudding, you need to kind of make sort of a custard first. So I've got my... Thank you, my love. Milk and an egg. Or two. We're only going to use one, though, just because there is so much pumpkin already in our pumpkin bread. And pumpkin is actually a pretty good pretty good egg substitute. It doesn't bind nearly as well, I've discovered, but it still does the job. So we're just going to do that. There's plenty of sugar already in there, as well as spices, so I'm not going to worry about that. In fact, I might add a pinch of salt to that. Crumbs off my fingers. Once, my hands are dry enough to handle salt without it sticking all over my fingers. And... just gonna pour that right over. Kind of coat it, as you can see. Now we're working with a very moist bread and a very dry bread. Ideally, you really just want dry bread. I mean, this bread pudding is a fantastic dish for stale bread. Well, the babka's gone a bit dry. The pumpkin bread has not. However, I think it's still going to work out pretty well. So, let's see. Our oven is preheated. Yay! I'm just going to chop up this rosemary real quick to toss into our filling. Just going to strip that down. Give it a rough chop. Put that directly into our thing of filling. Put this away because I don't need it anymore. And stir all of that stuff in. Okay, and it is ready to be covered by our bread mixture. So, and I'm hoping that it is enough. We shall see in just a moment. Oh yeah, it's fine. Okay. Alright, so that is ready to go into our oven, which is now hot enough. And I'm just going to set a timer for about 20 minutes and see how it looks in that amount of time. Which is kind of perfect timing because we're about 2 minutes left on our soup. And that means I can go ahead and switch... Well, actually, no. Let's go ahead and slice up my garnishes. I'm just going to take a bowl here to put them in. And I kind of want to go for a little bit more interesting cuts on the celery. So I'm going to try to do some bias cuts. stupidly thin. Like so. And I think that'll look pretty interesting kind of fanned out across the top of the bowl. With a little bit of chopped almonds or pine nuts on top. So, just gonna slice that stupidly thin. And, maybe I can go for thinner, you know, here, do half of this. Half of this, like a stupidly thin, almost shred. Like, there's this Chinese place near us that whenever they, I have their hot and sour soup, they kind of do sort of very thinly sliced celery like this. It's actually kind of interesting. So, I figure that adds some fun texture. And that is the sound of our soup timer going off, so let me just grab a trivet over here, because I need to remove this entire thing from the heat. There we go. It looks and smells excellent, by the way. And I'm just going to let that cool for about 5 minutes first. And then we're going to do our last bit to chill the soup. We're not going for stupidly cold soup, we're just going for a bit cooler than what you're probably accustomed to. So, I'll just put that on a spoon rest over here and turn off the fan so you can hear me a little bit better while we just kind of finish up our slicing. And what else do? Maybe if I do kind of now I'm just kind of being weird. Just doing kind of weird sort of side cuts here. And then seeing if that softens it any. Sticking in the hot water, soften, and pulling it up. That did not work. Nope. Maybe that looks dumb. Okay. We'll just do the stupidly thin biased cuts for you as well. Alright. That's there. And I need to blow my nose again. I'm sorry, I know that's gross. But like I said, allergies kick me in the face. 1 moment. You're stuck on a piece of celery. What is wrong with you, Mr. Mouse? Where'd my mouse go? Ah, here we are. Okay, and we are back. And that is cooling down. Just grab that spoon. And I'm also going to give it a quick taste to see if it needs any more salt too. It probably will. Also the fact that we're going to be adding ice to this to chill it. So I'm just going to take a ladle and a small bowl, or in this case, a small cup. And this way I don't have to worry about using multiple spoons to taste. Yep, needs more salt. Kosher salt, you really don't have to be all that discriminatory, and like I said, we're going to be adding about a cup of ice into this. So, nice thing also about kosher salt, you can kind of taste it difference immediately. Because it dissolves super quickly in comparison to table salt. So, let's try that broth again. Sorry. Piece of onion hit the back of my throat. Okay. That's got some good flavor. I might have to add a little bit more salt because we're going to be adding extra water. But we shall see. Because it's time to get some ice. We're going to need about a cup of ice. And you need to add it while the soup is still hot so it melts. So, once it is finished melting, your soup should be cool enough to serve. If you want to chill it extra long, put it in the fridge, especially if you want to make it colder. But this will get it to a nice, not freezing, but still at a good temperature that you can still taste all the flavors of the soup without having to heat it up. Still melting for me. And of course, add salt as necessary to bring those flavors out again. Just do that little trick I showed you by ladling some into a cup or a little small bowl and drinking from the bowl so you don't contaminate your ladle or any of your spoons. Because I know, especially from taking cooking classes with those little disposable tasting spoons, you can go through like a million of them before your dish is right. And a big thing with cooking is that everyone's ingredients vary. Whether it comes to spices varying, the age of your spices, the time of the year, the weather, anything can affect the flavor. So the reason why cooking is a lot less precise than, say, baking is that you are dealing with variations of ingredients and varying flavors. So that is why it's important to taste your food when it is safe to taste it. Don't taste raw meat unless it happens to be carpaccio or steak tartare and you have the proper kind of things for that. So I'm just going to take some broth here. You know, that is well balanced. I don't need to add anything more to it. Just going to steal some more broth because it's tasty. Oh, that's excellent. Okay, so that's the soup. We've got about 10 minutes left on our apple pumpkin bread thing, cobbler thing. So we'll stick around for that as well. I'm sorry, that is so good. Hey babe, do you want some soup? Okay, let me get you some soup. So, I think maybe some pine nuts will be pretty good on top of this. Where did my pine nuts go? Ah, here we are. There we go. Here you are, my love. And now some for me. This is our dinner. Didn't turn out well? Excellent.
Still warm.
Yeah.
Great broth.
Mm-hmm.
Juiced, crunchy, good mouthfeel.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would actually suggest if you want a little bit of spice your soup, adding a little bit more paprika. Like we have about a teaspoon of paprika in this current batch. I would probably have used about 2. In fact, I'm going to write it as 2 for the Patreon subscribers on the recipe card for this. That's right, while these videos will always be free to watch and it will be highlighted on Twitch, also on Facebook because we're back on Facebook Live, and the episodes also get uploaded to YouTube when I happen to post up the blog post for it. So you can always watch this video. However, if you would like a recipe card, rather than having to watch this video over and over again or with a notepad or something, you can go to my Patreon, patreon.com/thegluttonousgeek, and you can find all the recipe cards for all my Munchies and Minis recipes there if you happen to be at the Kitchen Twitch or higher level, which is about starts at about $5 a month, but you get about $5 a month, you get 3 recipe cards per month. So, and you also get access to all of my recipe cards well before they go up on the blog. So, that's not necessarily a planned option, but that's kind of how it's ended up. So, keep that in mind as well. About 7 minutes left on our thing in the oven. So, I'm just going to dig in a little bit while chatting a little bit. Oh, thank you, Strike. Now I kind of wish I had made up some bread or something. Or gotten some crescent rolls or something to go along with this. Soak up with this lovely broth. And it's one of those things that, I mean, this is still a bit warm, but it should still be flavorful when it cools down even more. And it's got a very good texture. I mean, like I said, a lot of times I'm not the biggest fan of, what's it called? Some cold soups, because after a few bites, you just get tired of just eating puree, especially if it's cold. So it's usually better to have a little bit more texture. That's why gazpacho tends to be a little bit chunkier, because when you're not really getting the warmth on the flavors, you still need to give your mouth something a little more interesting to deal with. Because there's a reason why baby food disgusts us. It's the texture. You can only taste one note and one texture for so long before it just kind of gross. So, I know I'm eating on stream, but this is actually really good, especially with the pine nuts in there. Pine nuts kind of add sort of a contrasting note to the savoriness that's in there. A little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of sweetness. I'm going to toss a little bit more paprika on this, just to see how it tastes, because I'm curious. In fact, see how that is mixed up. Oh yeah, definitely include more paprika. course, I don't really use paprika that often, so it's very possible that my paprika's actually lost some flavor to it. I need to audit my spice arsenal. Because it used to be that I would just throw a million spices and everything, which is fine. However, I've actually kind of cut back on that some, because I know that a lot of these spices aren't really... I mean, spices can be expensive if you don't happen to have access to a market like I do. Atlanta, we have several places to get spices cheaply, like DeKalb Farmers Market, as you saw the giant tub of paprika that I have. Strike says the spice must be audited and accounted for before it can flow. Indeed, sir. Yes, indeed. But, yeah, that tub of paprika, there was a lot more in it originally, and it was 94 cents for a tub this large. Let's see what else I've got in here that's going to make you kind of grind your teeth some. Let's see, big thing of herbs Provence, $1.18. Just to give you an idea of what I deal with. Oh, garam masala, you can see I have quite a bit of that, 92 cents. So, DeKalb Farmers Market in Atlanta. If you go, bring a suitcase. Well, don't bring a suitcase to the store. Just, you might want to stock up a suitcase to take home with you. Especially if you like cooking with spices that are not as easy to find. Because a lot of times if you hit up Amazon, it can still be pretty expensive for large quantities of spices, and you normally end up having to buy like 5-pound bags of things for certain things. Let's see, 2 minutes left on the cobbler. I'm gonna take a peek at it to see if it needs to bake a little bit longer or not. I'm gonna take a toothpick to it. Oh gosh, that smells awesome. Oh, just got a whiff of it as I close the oven door. Toothpick. Now let's just aim the camera up. And there we go. Let's grab a oven mitt. Where did I put my oven mitts? I guess they're all in here. All right. There's one. There's two. Let's take a look-see. Oh yeah. That's a little gooey in the center. However, another, let's go with 5 minutes. Should do it. However, you probably don't need to wait that long. We'll wait anyway. We'll chat, because I'm pretty sure after all that build-up, you probably want to see what it looks like when it's done. And besides, we're actually making good time. I mean, it's about 9 now, so we're almost at we're about full time. And here I thought it was going to be a short episode, but no, this actually worked out well. And I think a lot of it just had to do with the fact that I hand cut everything. I mean, like I said, for things like the onions and celery, I would say if you're planning on making this within a short period of time, cut it all ahead of time and refrigerate it. That way it's all like that, the potatoes, all of it's ready to go when you're ready to cook. Also gives it more time to cool if you happen to be serving for a crowd. It just makes it go a lot faster. Ooh, I barely drank my scotch. Need to remedy that. And even though the water melted, it's still pretty good. Has kind of a weird metallic taste to it. I think there might be something. I think we might need to change the water filter out. Though, then again, I'm not entirely sure how long that ice cube, the D20 ice cubes, have been in the freezer. So, it may have just taken on the taste of freezer. Yeah, that's probably what happened, come to think of it. Yes, I should start cleaning up while I wait. That way, I have less to do once the show is over, and I can just get on to photographing this. Or putting it away to photograph tomorrow when I'm not exhausted. Which I think that might be the case. Besides, I've got time tomorrow. I'm also going to be making some coffee cake tomorrow as well. There's a book called The Golem and the Genie, and I'm still working on it. However, the golem in the book is bored, so the person watching after her brings a copy of the Boston Cooking School cookbook, published like during the late 1890s, and says, here, just let's start out with a simple coffee cake, just to give you something to do, to learn how to bake things. So she makes coffee cake. It tastes amazing, and then she just starts baking a whole mountain of pastries. So I actually have a copy of, well, it's a reproduction copy, obviously, of said cookbook. So I am going to be trying to modernize this recipe from the 1890s, which is going to be interesting because that was really before electric ovens were really a thing, or at least commonplace. So I'm having to, like I said, kind of guess at some things and keep an eye on things. I have to modernize the cooking stuff. It's actually interesting. You know how they sell raisins seedless, mostly? You don't have to deseed them. Back then you did. So there's this whole instructions of how to deseed raisins, and like how to work with eggs, and especially bad eggs, like just, you know, crack it in a separate bowl in case one of them is bad, so you can get rid of it. So taking a lot of stuff into account. Though, it's also interesting seeing how a lot of stuff hasn't really changed in the past, well, almost century and a half. It's just the tools have. The ingredients have too, which I am also kind of hoping this recipe works out, considering baking powder had different formulations within, I wouldn't say, its invention. There used to be single-acting baking powder. There used to be baking powder with toxic ingredients in it. So, I'm hoping that the conversion is pretty much the same on this, and of course, I will not be using toxic baking powder. So it sounds like our cobbler is done. So let's get that out of the oven and in front of your eyeballs. Yes, yes, timer, I can hear you. I can hear you screaming at me. You're so needy. Okay. Whew. Oh my gosh. That is honestly one of the most heavenly things I've ever smelled in my entire life. Oh gosh. Here, look at this. I mean, I know it doesn't look like much, but it smells amazing. I mean, I'm getting the clove and rosemary as a little bit of pumpkin and a little bit of pumpkin. But honestly, that clove and rosemary scent together are just I kind of want to make that scent into a perfume, to be honest with you. And I can definitely smell the orange muscat as well. The oranges mixed with rosemary and clove. Yeah, that smells amazing. I actually can't wait until that cools down. So, I would say the kitchen experiment was successful, don't you think? Anyway, that means that we are at the end of our episode. My name is Catherine Barsonistas. You've been watching the Gluttonous Geek Presents Munchies and Minis. Tonight's recipe was for the Red Sheaf Inn's cold potato soup, as well as this delicious honey pumpkin bread and baked apple cobbler thing. I kind of wish I had a recipe, but I know it would be way too complicated. So, next week, I'm not entirely sure what we'll be cooking. I believe the other high-voted recipe idea on my Patreon poll was for honeycomb cake with lavender icing and I want to say syrupy dark cherries. I believe that was based off of the Aelinth Vineyard from Pathfinder's Taverns of the Inner Sea supplement book, first edition, which, once again, a lot of those supplement books, you don't necessarily have to have second edition to play with them because they are mostly for lore and flavor text when you are running your games. For that matter, I am rambling, so stay tuned for next week. Stay tuned, hopefully the next few days, when I be posting my recipe posting the video for my Blackwater Stout cream puffs from that episode of Munchies and Minis, as well as the pizza tacos from the game Night in the Woods. Anyway, I want to thank you all for joining me again. This has been good to get the Facebook Live back, as well as the Twitch going. It is nice to not have Reddit Live in my ears, as fun and crazy as that was. And get vaccinated. But beyond that, as always, stay safe, stay sane, stay you. Have a great night. My name is Catherine Barsonistas, and you've been watching the Gluttonous Geek Presents Munchies and Minis. Check you later.